Hello everybody, this is Iceman, and today we're doing another YouTuber casual hunt. This time we have DocGoblin, so if you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody sort of, what's going on.
Well, I'm DocGoblin. I've been saving the online quest for something like this, so I'm Hunter Rank 1, so we're going to go fight a Royal Ludroth.
This is going to be amazing. So, let's go.
Alright.
There he is. Alright, so if you want to tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm DocGoblin, of course. What I do is just, Let's Plays. I've only got, a couple series recorded, so I've been working on Monster Hunter lately. I've been just kind of going through the offline quests in a normal, like an average player's fashion. So I've played a little bit of Monster Hunter before, but not to the extent where I really know what I'm doing, like some people on YouTube.
So, what other Monster Hunter games have you played? How long? Because obviously everyone's different. It generally either goes, you played it thousands and thousands of hours, or people have never played it before.
So, I guess I'm in the rare case of being in between. Freedom Unite was the first Monster Hunter game I played, and I probably had about 200 hours on that, but I wasn't really playing with anybody because nobody around me, also had a PSP and Monster Hunter.
Interesting. It seems to be the most common thing, especially with the PSP games, because Monster Hunter, at least up until now, hasn't become too popular, so it's a very rare occasion that you can actually find someone to play locally.
Right.
So it's a bit of a shame. What about Monster Hunter Tri or anything like that? Have you played any of those?
So I played a little bit of Tri, pretty much up to the laggy. Basically, after I started playing Freedom Unite, I was like, oh, this is awesome, and I looked up more Monster Hunter stuff, because as you said, I really didn't know a whole lot about it. And I did have a Wii, so I picked up Tri, and really all of that wasn't too long ago, and it was about, the same time as they started talking about, bringing this one out, and the Wii U and all that. So, on my channel, I'd actually started a Tri walkthrough, kind of right before I found that stuff out, and then I ended up just abandoning it because I figured I'd rather do it on this version than get started there and then switch over.
Yeah, well, not only that, Monster Hunter being what it is, you've got to put in hundreds of hours, so it probably was the best idea to just start again, I guess.
Yeah. And the other thing is, it's been a while, figuring out how to do all the recordings and all that before I actually kind of, got the setup the way I wanted and everything actually worked halfway decent.
Again, that seems to be another common problem, actually figuring out, how to do it. Because obviously, doing YouTube videos may seem easy, but it really isn't, because you've got to put a lot of effort into, getting all the right equipment, making sure everything works, and as a lot of people have said, it is very difficult to try and play a game and talk whilst playing the game, and try and be good at it as well.
Right.
So, it all comes with practice, so, you'll probably look back at some of your videos in a year's time and think this is horrible, but, we've all been in that situation before. So
that's the goal, that I've improved somewhat over a certain period of time.
As long as you're having fun, that's the main thing.
Absolutely.
So, good stuff. Trying to adapt back to my old gear and weapons and things, so it's not easy.
Right.
So, yeah. So how far are you actually in the game now? Because like you said, you've only done a couple of quests online.
Basically, well, as far as offline or online?
Well, both.
Online, I've done one other monster quest, and the rest, like, you know, the little gathering, the stuff just to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Just because I figured I had to gather, I might as well knock it out. But offline, pretty much just got up to the volcano area. I have like Cha-Cha, you know, he disappeared and came back, or I got Kayamba and all that. So they're just starting to talk about the sea days, or, you know, a giant monster underwater and all that stuff.
So you're getting there slowly.
Basically, I've kind of been away for a week because, like we were talking about, been a little sick and just work is busy as well.
Yeah, well, I think it seems to be going around. Like, I lost my voice pretty much today. But unfortunately, you know, not a lot you can do about that.
Absolutely. So hopefully I'll have some more free time. This is kind of a light week for me, so I'm hoping to do a bunch of videos.
Good start. Quests are still going relatively quickly. This is all good.
And we did get kicked out, so...
Oh yeah.
Before we started recording, for those of you watching, I got kicked out of the room like twice before we even got started.
Yeah, it seems to have a very similar issue to Monster Hunter Tri, where like the hardest thing is to actually get in the quest, but once you're in, it seems to be working. Seems to be. So yeah, post up another one, I guess.
All right.
I'll switch my gear out. Still trying to remember what low rank stuff I had.
So I still have left the Barroth, the Rathian, and the DocGoblin. And the Lagambi.
And everything else.
And do a Rathian?
Let's go for it. Chinese hammer as well, see how that goes. Don't forget to eat. One little trap. I'm like super overly prepared for like the Moga hunts offline.
Yeah.
So I've got like a million traps and all material to make like more traps and things like that.
I think the last thing I actually fought for a video was the Nibblesnarf, and that was actually the last time I played as well, so I've still got like Nibblesnarf stuff in my inventory. I'm the worst at like putting all that stuff away before I go on the next hunt.
That's really something I need to get out of habit of doing, like remembering to put everything away, because you go on a quest and then you've got the stuff from the previous quest and then you have to like trade stuff out. Right.
I do that all the time.
I do it constantly online because I'm just like, people, like, it's hard to play with randoms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like go from one room to another trying to find what you want, and then you've got what you had before, and it's just it's a mess. Should be in the same area. One of these stuff.
Well, hopefully, I mean, I'll have a cool online experience either way, so I'll have to start playing some more. But for the most part, I'd like to record it and play with people. So
yeah, I mean, now that the region unlock patch is out, obviously it's a lot easier, but again, a lot of the problems that I have, especially with playing with people in America, is they're generally, you know, at least 5 hours behind me.
Yeah.
Sometimes 8 hours behind me, so that is, of course, extremely inconvenient for everyone involved, because it usually means the Americans have to do it really early in the morning, and for me it's like midday, so it's like really awkward. But I mean, you know, once you find some online friends, it shouldn't really be too much of an issue.
Right.
Again, try not to play with rabbits.
Now, have you set up many like hunting parties on Teamwork Cast, or mostly?
I have done a couple, but it seems to be again quite a common thing where you set one up and then like people drop out, other people take their place, and then as you're about to start, those people drop out, or they say they're going to turn up and don't turn up.
Yeah.
It's just like, you know, in theory it should all go swimmingly, but in execution, I don't know, it all depends. But I mean, it's a really good service. I mean, being able to like find people you want to hunt with and set hunting parties up. But I mean, for the most part, it has worked. But yeah, all depends on whether everybody else turns up or not. So how did you actually find the Monster Hunter games then? Like, because it's not really a popular game, shall we say, and you know, generally a lot of people seem to find it by accident or from a friend, which is a bit of a shame.
Well, I actually like, you know, being a bit of a big gamer, you know, get all the magazines and all that stuff and read reviews and things like that. And I remember a long time ago, probably it was the first Monster Hunter, or maybe it, you know, I don't know, maybe a little bit after that, reading a review that was just like trashing it, saying, you know, you could only go out of the village during quests and everything was on a time limit, and it, you know, it seemed to be, you know, a review coming from somebody that was like really into exploration games, and they're more like you should have an open world and you should be able to move around and find monsters and, you know, kind of stuff like that. And you know, since then I've learned not to really trust the reviews as much, but at that point I was kind of like, well, that doesn't really sound that interesting. And then I guess, I don't know if it was really around the time of Freedom Unite or Try. I mean, for a while there was actually a pretty heavy campaign in America for Monster Hunter, where they had, you know, they were running TV commercials and stuff like that. I forget what release it was, but that was probably about when. So really it was just TV advertising. And it might have actually been about the same time I got into watching Let's Plays, because I was a little bit late to that as well. And, you know, just watching different people play games, and I stumbled upon somebody playing Monster Hunter. You know, I have no idea who it was or what, you know. It was a really old, I think probably the first thing I watched was Monster Hunter Try stuff. So, I mean, Try was out by the time I started playing Freedom Unite.
Interesting. Well, I mean, the problem with Monster Hunter in general is it's very focused on like teamwork, but I mean, the game itself in general is, it just kind of expects you to know everything without telling you anything, which I think is the biggest problem. And I guarantee that anybody you talk to, that's what they'll say, which is bad about the game. It doesn't give you any sort of direction of like how to do anything. It explains everything you need to know, but in the most vaguest of ways, and generally that's why people give it bad reviews, because they expect it to be, you know, just like every other game, like having a proper tutorial and explaining things, but it's more of, you know, exploring the world and figuring things out for yourself, you know, kind of much like Demon Souls, Dark Souls, which, I don't know, I think most people, they either like it or they don't. There's no sort of in between, unfortunately.
Well, I will say that both of those games are, you know, on my shelf. I've probably put more hours into Demon Souls and Dark Souls than I have into Monster Hunter, just because I really enjoyed those. And, you know, I don't really mind so much that, you know, I don't really like the heavy tutorials and, you know, too much hand-holding. Now, when you can't, like, access the skill descriptions to find out, you know, what they do, that's a problem. But, you know, since you can select them and see, and there's such an online community, you know, people that game now with game facts and guides and wikias, I mean, I guess it shouldn't be that way that you need to look it up, but, you know,
Yeah, unfortunately that's sort of how it is. Like Capcom has said, right, we've made this game, here you go, figure it out for yourself, and then the community have sort of slowly got together and made guides, and, you know, like you say, you can go on YouTube and type in, you know, Let's Play or tutorial, and generally figure stuff out, you know, either through me or through people like Shepard or Mazarion or other well-known Monster Hunter players as well, but I don't know, the game itself is good, but they really need to at least give it a proper tutorial, at least. Maybe not to hold your hand, but at least to explain the game mechanics like armor skills and, you know, finding materials and combining them to make new ones, you know, just basic things like that. It just ruins the game for new players because it really seems overwhelming. Because you're just like, here's this big open game, and I just don't understand anything.
And I think it's also, I mean, the other thing would be is, depending on how into it you are, it's also going to be really difficult to pace a tutorial like that, because, like you said, you have all this stuff going on, and if every time you go on a mission they try to explain something new, and it's like, okay, you should, I mean, because, like, in the first game, they give you, like, a, you know, combine these items to make potions, or, you know, collect blue mushrooms, that kind of, you know, those kind of quests. And then they kind of let it go from there. I don't know. I'm kind of on the opposite side of the argument, I think. I think they kind of do enough. I don't know.
It's all a matter of opinion, like you say. I think it would at least be nice to have the choice to say, like, right, I want tutorials or I don't want tutorials, and if you don't want tutorials, you should just be able to get on with the game. Like, you should be able to make a character and just go straight into the game if you don't want tutorials.
Yeah.
She's ready. But again, that's I could go on for like literally an hour about why the start of this game is really bad, but I don't think people would really enjoy that. So where's she gonna go? Probably to 4. She's going up to 9. I was trying to remember which monster goes to which area, because I played pretty much all the Monster Hunter games, and in Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, it didn't have the underwater combat, so the areas which monster goes are slightly different.
Right.
So it's trying to remember, like, which game am I playing, and then which monster goes in which area. So it's all good. It's all good. So how are you actually finding the hammer then? Are you playing with hammer as your main weapon, or are you mixing things up a bit?
Actually, well, I've been trying to mix things up a little bit because, you know, the people that are watching my channel are looking for multiple weapon playthroughs, and of course, like you were talking about Shepard and his gauntlet videos where he does every monster with every weapon. And you know, I don't quite want to take it to that extent, but primarily I've been playing with the gun lance, because there's that Baron's gun lance that you can get really early because of that Bullfango online quest.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, you know, overpowered at that point. So that's pretty much what I've been using.
The thing with the event quests is, I've had this conversation with Zamadaga, one of my other friends. He's the guy who helped me do my skills video that I did, where I show like every skill in the game just about. He says that the event quests are there, so like if you're in lower rank, you should be able to access all of the event quests without any trouble. So it's like, you know, the weapons that you get generally will be better than what you can start out with, but, you know, they're there to sort of help you to get a little bit further. You know, eventually they will be outpowered.
Right.
But, you know, generally they're there to sort of help you out to begin with when you get to like high rank or G rank. So
just in terms of like you know, leveling up a weapon, they become...
Most of the time, you can't level them up, so, you know, they are what they are. So, again, that's why they sort of get overpowered quite early on. Some of them can be upgraded, most of the time it's in one level. Again, which is a bit of a shame.
Because I'm just starting to get to the point where, you know, weapons that I do have access to, you know, are kind of on that same level.
Good stuff. No one bites the dust.
So we've kind of had my start. I mean, your subscribers probably know about you, but when did you start getting into Monster Hunter?
I have been into Monster Hunter pretty much since the very beginning.
Yeah?
I had some store credit, and when this game first came out, I just bought it on the off chance, just because there were no other games out at the time that I wanted. And I was like, oh, there's this game called Monster Hunter, which is, of course, like the most generic name you've ever heard.
Right.
And it was by Capcom, so, you know, at that time, when we go back to, was it 2004, 2003-ish, they made good games, kind of. So I was like, right, I'll just take the chance on this game. And I played the first game for maybe 40 to 50 hours, and as I've said, you know, Monster Hunter is quite a in-depth game, and unless you sort of know what to do, you're pretty much stuck. So, you know, I sort of gave up after a short period of time, and it's a bit of a shame. But again, you know, there was no Monster Hunter wiki at that time. There was no guides or game facts. Like, there was nothing. So I was just playing the game on my own, and I'm like, right, I don't understand what's going on. I've had enough. Then when the PSP came out, they announced that Monster Hunter was coming out, and they said, oh, it's been like redone, like new monsters have been added, new features, and all this stuff. So I was like, right, I'll give this game another try. Luckily, they did enough to that game to actually make it a lot more playable. Like, they added the farm, the cat kitchen, you know, just like things to make it a lot easier.
Right.
And of course, you could play locally with friends, and at the time, a lot of my friends, we'd all bought PSPs, so we all got Monster Hunter and we all played together, so that was fun. And then when they stopped playing, I found Excellent Kai, which is a program you can use to connect your PSP online. So that gave me another couple of hundred hours online, played the game for about 500 hours and then gave up, and just been playing every Monster Hunter game in the series since, you know, just going from one to the next, to the next, to the next.
Right. I guess that could be, you know, a lot of the difference in our experiences, because by the time I came to the games, I was like, oh, I need Thunderbugs to make this weapon. Google, where do I get Thunderbugs? And it's like, okay, go to this area, this gathering point is the best place for it. And, you know, not even have to, like, search too much. Like, people, there's just questions. Google knows everything. And so, I don't know, like you said, there should be better ways to figure it out, I guess, but that's just kind of how I've always approached it.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the biggest thing that people don't do in this game. They come online and they just ask you, how do I get this? How do I get this? And it's just like, did you literally just type that into Google? No. There you go. There's your answer. Like I said, when I started the game, there was nothing. There was no game facts, no wiki. You type into Google, how do I do this? Nothing would come up.
Right.
But now, there's a plethora of stuff. So, do you want to set another one up?
Sure.
Next one.
I think we're going to do the Barroth. But yeah, this has been my main weapon.
It's quite overpowered when you first get it, but it will soon be outclassed. Don't forget cleansers. If you don't have any, I can give you some. This is one of the best things about this game. You can send an item to somebody and they will actually receive it. Because in the old games, especially on the PSP games, like you would send something to somebody and it would just like disappear. Like it would say unable to receive and it would just be lost.
Ah.
A problem with X-Link Kai and also a problem with Ad Hoc Party as well, which is a program you use on the PS3 to connect your PSP and go online. And the main reason I actually bought my PS3.
Right.
I was like, I want to play Monster Hunter. I want to play it online. Use this program on PS3. Right, let's buy a PS3.
I mean, that is what... I mean, I didn't get Wii U on release. I got it... I know, I waited for Monster Hunter to come out, and then I picked it up and got the game. So, I mean, once you start getting into it, it's definitely like... I plan to put a lot of hours into it now.
Yeah, again, the pacing of this game is quite bad. I mean, if you never played it before, and like the first couple of hours they're all like gathering and mining and all this stuff, I mean, most people would probably prefer to just sort of jump straight in and fight a couple of monsters and then go to that, because at least they get a feel for the game, like what's to come. But you know, it is what it is.
And do you think that's changed a little bit with like online demos and people like, you know, being able to, you know, before it comes out, fight the Lagambi and fight the Plesioth and kind of get an idea?
Yeah, playing demos is definitely a good idea. Of course, because you get preset equipment. Generally, the monsters aren't as hard as they are normally. You know, they give you good skills and stuff, you know, to actually encourage you to have fun.
Right.
So yeah, playing the demo for the PSP version or Monster Hunter Tri demo. I'm not how. Like, where did the Monster Hunter Tri demo come from? Because it was never released over here. Is it like through promotion through GameStop or?
I mean, I don't know about the original Tri. I never played, you know, the demos for any game but this one. So I mean, this one was out, you know, like a month in advance or so, just on, you know, the shop online or whatever.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually know that there was demos for the others.
I mean, that's the biggest thing. I mean, I think the first Monster Hunter game that actually had a demo was Freedom Unite. So I think, oh no, because Devil May Cry? It might have been the first Devil May Cry. I think that had a demo. Either way, I mean, trying to get hold of the demos at least is hard enough.
Right.
I mean, I don't know, half the time they do a good job at giving you, you know, reasonable monsters to fight, you know, to give you an idea of what the game's like. Other times they kind of don't. So, again, Monster Hunter is just a game where you either like it or you don't. And the demo especially really doesn't show off what the game is. Like, obviously you can choose all the weapon types and things like that, but I don't know, it's an exaggerated version of the game. Because like I say, they give you really good armor skills, good weapons, the monsters aren't as strong, so you think, yeah, I'm a badass with all these weapons doing really well, and then you get to the main game and you're like, this is the hardest game I've ever played in my life.
I think the biggest thing is it doesn't capture the... Monster Hunter is materialism.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all about getting, you know, the next better weapon, the cool armor set, and not just for looks, but, you know, as you get stronger and you're able to take down that monster that gave you so much trouble in under 10 minutes.
Yeah, you don't have that sort of progression level. You don't like start from nothing and work your way up. In the demo, you're just like, this is what I have, let's go.
Right.
Did you actually play the demo on the Wii U?
I did.
Just buy this game straight off.
Actually, I did play the demo, and I recorded a little bit of the demo as well and put that up. I mean, it didn't change my... I mean, my plan was to buy it anyway.
So, as like a new-ish player, like how would you say that they did their job with the demo? Because I mean, if I would never played the game before and they just threw me in to this world, like I think they would have done a really bad job, like not explaining like, weapon combos or like how to block certain attacks. I know there is like the in-game sort of text and stuff, like if you press the Wii button it gives you the online manual, but I don't know anybody who even knew that existed. Like they didn't know there was like controls or anything. So like as a new player, like how did you find it?
I mean, it's hard to say because, you know, I was already familiar with the majority of the weapons, so it wasn't like I didn't already know how to block. But if I had been totally new, I mean, they took certain things out of the way. So, because, you know, one of the areas was the ice area for you to fight the Lagami. So you didn't have to worry about cold drinks. They just made that not an issue. So you didn't have to know why your stamina was dropping. So they didn't explain anything like that. So they kind of, you know, like you said, it was oversimplified with you already having all the weapons. But it wasn't, you know, they didn't really give you a move list either. I didn't know that you could look it up like that, or if you even could on the demo.
Well, I only figured that out just by accident. I just pressed the Wii home button, and then it just said manual, and I was like, okay. And I looked at it, and I was like, yeah, you probably should have told me this like in game, so people actually understand at least how to use the weapons. But it is what it is. I mean, Capcom, like I said, have always done like a kind of a weird thing with this game in regards to demos.
Right. I always think that, you know, I mean, not that the loading screens are terribly long anymore, but, you know, if it was going to be a demo, and because it's kind of time restricted anyways, just make that loading screen a little bit longer and just have, you know, controls come up on screen depending on which weapon you've selected, or like other games.
Yeah,
like,
I think that definitely would have been a much better idea. You know?
Like, have you ever played Morrowind, or I guess some of the other Elder Scrolls games?
The only one that I really played was Oblivion.
Okay. Did it do that one as well? I mean, Morrowind is the one that I remember. Just like every time you loaded, there would just be, you know, a bit of trivia information.
Like a quick tip, I think it was. It would just randomly generate one of like hundreds of random things.
But it was always useful. It's like, this thing can be killed by fire, stuff that you wouldn't, you know, necessarily know right off.
Yeah, that definitely would have helped. Again, Capcom really don't go out of their way to help new players, or at least help introduce them to the game. It's just like, here's this game, get on with it.
Right. So have you talked about, you know, how the Japanese market, you know, kind of plays a role in that, I guess, because, you know, they're the big consumers of Monster Hunter. It's becoming more popular here, but from what I understand, they've always loved it.
Well, the thing with this game is, like, of course, it is a Japanese game, and in Japan, like, everybody plays locally, which is why, I think one of the main reasons why the 3DS version didn't have an online. Not only because Capcom weren't happy with how the online would work, they've actually said, like, we made an online, but we weren't happy with how it worked, so, you know, we preferred to not include it if it wasn't up to standard, than to include it and for it to be, you know, absolutely terrible. But again, everybody plays locally, you know, everybody like helps each other out, so it's more of a community kind of thing. Like, you would talk to your friends and say, like, how would I do this, and, you know, that's how it would kind of work.
Right.
But of course in the West, like, everybody's like super antisocial and nobody wants to talk to anybody, and yeah, it's a lot more difficult to learn a game like this. Just because, like, everybody's out for themselves, like, nobody wants to go out of their way to help anybody. So, like, in Japan, of course, it's, like, literally one of the most popular games that there is, to the fact that in the Japanese Universal Studios, there is an entire section for this game. Like, there's a Monster Hunter theme park.
Right. So a big difference.
Big difference. And you disconnected.
Yeah, you just died on my screen.
Good stuff.
Well, shall we call that a good stopping point?
We shall. So, due to a series of unfortunate events, we're going to call it for now. So, if you want to tell everybody where they can find you.
Of course, my username is just YouTube, / DocGoblin LP at the end. So you can find me there. You can also find me in the shows on Teamworkcast. And of course, I'll be putting a link in the description of this video to Iceman's YouTube channel.
Good stuff. You got Facebook or Twitter or anything else?
I do have a Facebook and Twitter, which is also linked on the YouTube. Haven't really been using it so much; it hasn't quite taken off. So, but you can find me there. I will respond if anybody's got any questions or anything like that.
Ask him how to get Thunderbugs.
Yeah, please direct all your Monster Hunter questions to me. I will direct you to Google.
Good stuff. So, I have been Iceman. I hope you've enjoyed watching this video, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, guys.